Alright guys, sorry I couldn't be there today. Some days that I'm not going to be there, I'll make these videos because it's an important lesson or something that I really want to make sure that you get. So since we're actually starting Candide today, I want to be able to read the first chapter to you guys even though I'm not going to be there today, okay? So what we're going to do is we are going to read chapter 1. For homework tonight, you guys are going to be reading through chapter 6. Today in class, we're just going to focus on chapter 1, okay? So what I want you guys to do is open up your books to chapter 1. We're going to read it together. And then for the rest of class, you guys are going to be talking about it, going through kind of unpacking this first chapter, and whatever time you have left in class, you guys can work on reading for tomorrow, okay? So we're going to start again on chapter 1. I think in your guys' books that starts on page 19, okay? So chapter 1, how Candide was brought up in a beautiful country house and how he was driven away. Okay? There lived in Westphalia, at the country seat of Baron Thunder Ten Tronckh, a young lad, blessed by nature with the most agreeable manners. You could read his character in his face. He combined sound judgment with unaffected simplicity, and that, I suppose, was why he was called Candide. I'm going to talk to you guys in a minute about the significance and meaning of some of these names. Okay, Candide's name is symbolic and significant in terms of what it means. Okay. The old family servant suspected that he was the son of the baron's sister by a worthy gentleman of that neighborhood, whom the young lady would never agree to marry because he could only claim 71 quarterings, the rest of his family tree having suffered from the ravages of time. The baron was one of the most influential noblemen in Westphalia, for his house had a door and several windows, and his hall was actually draped with tapestry. Every dog in the courtyard was pressed into service when he went hunting, and his grooms acted as whips. The village curate was his private chaplain. They all called him your lordship and laughed at his jokes. The baroness, whose weight of about 25 stone, look that up, made her a person of great importance, entertained with dignity which won her still more respect. Her daughter, Cunegonde, whose name is also significant, was a buxom girl of 17 with a fresh, rosy complexion, altogether seductive. The baron's son was in every way worthy of his father. His tutor, Pangloss, was a recognized authority in the household on all matters of learning, and young Candide listened to his teaching with that unhesitating faith which marked his age and character. Pangloss taught metaphysico, theologo, cosmolo-nigology. He proved incontestably that there is no effort without a cause, no effect without a cause, and that in this best of all possible worlds, his lordship's country seat was the most beautiful of mansions, and her ladyship the best of all possible ladyships. It is proved, he used to say, that things cannot be other than they are, for since everything was made for a purpose, it follows that everything is made for the best purpose. Observe, our noses were made to carry spectacles, so we have spectacles. Legs were clearly intended for breeches, and we wear them. Stones were meant for carving and for building houses, and that's why my lord has a most beautiful house, for the greatest baron in Westphalia ought to have the noblest residence. And since pigs were made to be eaten, we eat pork all the year round. It follows that those who maintain that all is right talk nonsense. They ought to say that all is for the best. Candide listened attentively and with implicit belief, for he found Lady Cunegonde extremely beautiful, though he never had the courage to tell her so. He decided that the height of good fortune was to have been born Baron Thunder Ten Tronckh, and that after that to be Lady Cunegonde. The next was to see her every day, and failing that, to listen to his master Pangloss, the greatest philosopher in Westphalia, and consequently the greatest in all the world. One day Cunegonde was walking near the house in a little coppice called the park, when she saw Dr. Pangloss behind some bushes giving a lesson in experimental physics to her mother's waiting woman, a pretty little birdette who seemed eminently teachable. Okay, guys, every year I have to explain this part, okay? Is he really giving a lesson in physics behind a bush with a woman? Think about it, okay? Think about what Pangloss is actually doing. Since Lady Cunegonde took a great interest in science, she watched the experiments being repeated with breathless fascination. She saw clearly the doctor's sufficient reason and took note of cause and effect. Then, in a disturbed and thoughtful state of mind, she returned home filled with a desire for learning, and fancied that she could reason equally well with young Candide, and he with her. On her way home she met Candide and blushed. Candide blushed too. Her voice was choked with emotion as she greeted him, and Candide spoke to her without knowing what he said. The following day, as they were leaving the dinner table, Cunegonde and Candide happened to meet behind a screen. Cunegonde dropped her handkerchief, and Candide picked it up. She quite innocently took his hand. He as innocently kissed hers with singular grace and ardour. Their lips met, their eyes flashed, their knees trembled, and their hands would not keep still. Baron Thundertentronckh, happening to pass the screen at that moment, noticed both cause and effect, and drove Candide from the house with powerful kicks on the backside. Cunegonde fainted, and on recovering her senses was boxed on the ears by the Baroness. Thus consternation reigned in the most beautiful and delightful of all possible manners. Okay, I want this sub to pause the video for a second to give you guys a chance to talk about what you noticed in chapter 1. What do you see already happening? What do you see Voltaire already starting to satirize in chapter 1? Okay, take a few minutes to talk about it with your small groups and then talk about it as a class a little bit more before resuming this video. Okay? Okay, so I hope you guys had some good conversations, some good discussions. I wish I was there to hear all of it. Okay, but a couple things that I want to go over with you guys so that you have some background info. Make sure you guys take these notes down. Okay, this is a really important part is looking at the significance of names. Okay, so Pangloss means all tongue or all talk. Okay, think about what Voltaire is already doing with this character. Think about all the background I gave you guys on Voltaire's views on philosophy and specific philosophers. Think about who he might be satirizing through Pangloss. Okay. And think about some of the details that we got in chapter 1 and how they relate back to the meaning of his name. Okay. Candide means white, pure, beautiful, honest, sincere, naive. Again, think about the descriptions that we see of him in this first chapter and how the significance of his name connects back to that, especially how he so easily falls into traps and how he so easily succumbs to Pangloss's ideas. Okay? Cunegonde is kind of a pun on Latin and French terms for female genitalia. So her name basically is a dirty word. Okay. As we go on and continue reading about her, I think about the significance of that. Even in chapter 1, what does she represent? Where do we see what attributes do we see of her already? She's described as being young, as being a buxom girl of 17, and we see her kind of in relation to her sexuality. So think about what Voltaire is satirizing through her character. Okay, we haven't met Cacambo yet. Okay, excuse my dogs. Barking in the background. But Cacambo, okay, we haven't met him yet, but eventually when we get there, his word basically means feces or excrement. Think about that too. Okay, we'll encounter other characters as well, where we'll need to look at the significance of their names. Okay, but these are the main ones that you're going to want to look at. So we see, the setting is created in this first chapter. Candide lives in a perfect world, and he's always going to try to come back to this first chapter. Okay, it's presented as this idyllic place where Baron Thundertentronckh lives. Right, he's the best of all possible barons, and it's the best of all possible worlds. And Candide, at the end of the chapter, is kicked out, right? And he's going to always want to kind of come back to what he saw as paradise, okay? If you guys look at the beginning of chapter 2, it actually says, after being turned out of this earthly paradise, okay? So this is kind of a parallel, right? Or a metaphor, like it says on the PowerPoint, for humanity's fall from Eden. Okay, I've seen some really, really excellent essays written on kind of the parallel of Candide and his journey to Adam and Eve, and looking at kind of this Garden of Eden metaphor that we're going to see. Okay, specifically because the book ends in a garden. Okay, so we start in a Garden of Eden and we end in a garden. Okay, it's going to look a little different, but keep that in mind. Candide will always remember this world as an ideal time and Cunegonde as the ideal woman. He's going to live his life trying to recapture this ideal world rather than trying to find an attainable happiness. Okay. So this is one particular aspect that Voltaire is satirizing, the idea that we as humans have the tendency to always believe there was a golden age that we've fallen from, right? And that we want to get back to, and then how oftentimes we do that in our own lives as well. Okay. So keep that in mind. You guys are going to go ahead and talk about this chapter a little bit more. So I want you to go through with your groups, and I want you to look at number 1. What are some satirical techniques used in this chapter? Okay. Think about some of those techniques that I've talked about the last 2 days. Where do you see them used in this chapter, and where do you see Voltaire already starting to utilize some of these techniques in the purpose of satirizing certain institutions? Okay. Comment on Pangloss's logic of cause and effect. Provide specific examples. Make a list of things that are being satirized in this chapter. It's a long list. It's a short chapter, but a long list of things he's already making fun of. And then again, number 4, how does Voltaire design the opening chapter to be recognized as a parody of the biblical story of the fall? Okay, the fall of man, Adam and Eve, if you're not familiar with that particular biblical story. Okay, so what elements parallel the biblical story of paradise and the fall of Adam and Eve from it? What are the differences that make for humor here? So look at the similarities, but also the differences that create a sense of humor. And then why would Voltaire be doing this? Why do you think he establishes this parallel at the very beginning of the text? Okay, so go ahead, guys, take 10 to 15 minutes, go through these questions with your group, and then discuss as a class. If you have any time left, which I'm not sure if you will, if you have any time left in class, you can work on reading because you need to read through chapter 6 for tomorrow. Okay? I hope you guys are having a good day. I miss all of you. If you want to look, I don't know if you can see my dogs. They're really getting a lot done today. It's good. Okay, so have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Good luck.